Good afternoon, everyone. As Jenny mentioned, my name is Josh Jacobowski. I am the Data Analysis Division Director for the Department of Local Government Finance. We are going to be presenting today on the 2022 Sales Data Submission and Compliance Review Processes. Hopefully you're in the right place. I'm going to go ahead and get started here with the next slide. So first, before I really get into kind of the different processes and information for you, I want to introduce our team because we're pretty new. As I mentioned, I'm the Data Analysis Division Director. I want to, it's a different voice coming at you today. If you're experienced with this and have been on the webinars that we've put on the past, whenever something concerning the Data Analysis Division comes on, you're probably used to hearing the voice of James Johnson. James accepted a position with the Legislative Services Agency this summer, and we're going to miss him for sure. He was an important piece of our team here. He was a very smart man and knew what he was doing definitely on the data side of things. But it's a great opportunity for James, and we want to wish him the best in that. But I was hired in August of 2022 to sort of follow up with James, follow in his footsteps. I've got some big shoes to fill there. He did an awesome job with this data analysis division, and I'm hoping I can continue that. Just a little bit of background about myself. I've been here at the state government for about 5 years now, a little bit more than that. I started as a budget analyst over with the state budget agency. During that time, I was able to really develop a keen understanding of the stateside finances and how that worked at the state level. About 3 years ago, I came over to DLGF and began my tenure here as the controller and financial analyst. So in that role, my primary responsibility was handling our internal budget and making sure that we had the money that we needed to continue our operations. And not only that we had the money that we needed, but we got it from the appropriate levels at the state. Doing that job really allowed me to develop a good understanding of the different processes and internal workings here within the Department of Local Government Finance. And it's served me well so far in this position here as the Data Division Director. Before that, I was actually a teacher. I taught math for about 10 years, mostly middle school math. So if you have any questions or anything about math, if you want to talk about the quadratic equation or how to find the slope of a line between two ordered pairs, you can type those questions in too. I'm happy to go over that stuff. But the rest of my team is also new. Deep Chapatwala and Delbia Jones started this summer, just right before I did. The two previous tax data analysts, Charles Gordon and Marilyn Goss James, also had great opportunities that they had to further their careers outside of the department. So we brought Deep and Delby on board. They're doing fantastic work for me. Have really made this transition an easy one, and I'm been very impressed with how well they've set things up for me for our data analysis division. In the past, James would split the state kind of into two sections for his two analysts, and I've basically followed that format. So Deep is going to be the main tax data analyst for the eastern half of the state. So he'll be performing the different review process and reaching back out to you and answering questions and that sort of thing if you're one of the eastern counties. And Delbia will be doing that same thing here for the western counties. I also wanted to make sure that I included our data inbox down there at the bottom. That is really the best way to reach us. That's something that we really try to monitor as closely as possible, track everything that comes in through that data inbox. So I put all of our individual emails up there on the screen for you, but the data inbox is really a good way to get a hold of us as well. So please use that as appropriate. Okay, I'm going to start getting into the actual meat here of the presentation. So in our for the agenda, rather, there are three main sections that I'm going to be kind of talking about here regarding our different processes with the sales data submissions. The first step, or the first section, is going to be to give you some advice on some things to consider as you complete your own kind of internal review of your county's sales data, from this year rather, 2022, in preparation for actually submitting that data to us. There's several different checks and things you can just look over to make sure that the process runs smoothly before you even submit that data to us. The middle part of the presentation, I'm going to actually walk through that process and show you some screenshots on where to go to the website and how to upload and affirm your 2022 sales data in the Gateway application site. And then finally, towards the latter part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about the sort of items or checks that we do here at the department that Delby and Deep are going to be doing when they take a look at your data and run that compliance review process on it to make sure that it is clean and it fits well within our databases. And you know, this is a very valuable resource that the state has, is all this information here at the department. So I lied a little bit there. There's actually one little thing that I wanted to talk about first before diving into those three sections, and that is the submission deadline. So hopefully this is something that is already being done. We're wanting to stress to counties as much as possible to upload the sales information to us on a monthly basis. So maybe I should have put that bullet point there up at the top, but it's down here at the bottom. We actually have an Indiana Administrative Code, 50 IAC 26, refers to the Department of Local Government Finance, but in that particular section, so 26-20-4K, it requires actually that sales data be uploaded on a monthly basis to our Gateway sales application site. We realize that hasn't happened. I know I can go back and look at that data, and that's not been the case so far, but we do want to try and encourage folks to do that as best they can. There is a pretty hard deadline though for when all of that data has to be in, so we can begin our compliance checks on us. And this is in the Indiana Code. So this is law 6-1.1-5.5-3 that on or before February 1st, county assessors are to submit all sales disclosure records that have a conveyance date during the preceding year. So in other words, we got to make sure that we have everything by February 1st of 2023 for every sale that occurred in 2022. That just helps us keep things moving and making sure that we are able to be set up well for the ratio studies that the assessment team does. Sorry, I'm going to take a drink of water before I start coughing like I did this morning. Hold on one second. Okay, that's a little better. All right, so here we go. This is what I was talking about with the three different sections that we will be presenting on here. These are the suggestions that we have for each of the different counties before you actually submit your data to us. So while reviewing these sales disclosure records that have been entered in your own particular software systems that you are using, it really helps us out, or it really will help you out in the long run to ensure that all records have it at a minimum these 5 things that I've listed out. This is really just kind of the minimum requirements, the things that we are going to be looking for when we're doing our compliance checks. If you can handle this on the front end, it makes everything run smoother. Excuse me, more smoothly. So we need to have at least one buyer and seller listed on there. Obviously, on that sales disclosure form, there needs to be one buyer and one seller. We need to have valid dates in all of the different date fields that are on that form. So there's some different date fields. There's the sales conveyance, the transfer, and then when the form was actually received. Valid sales price, the valid parcel number or numbers if it's a multi-parcel sale, and then the state assigned taxing districts that it was sold in, and finally the valid property class codes. One last thing that we also is very helpful to make sure that is checked ahead of time before that data is submitted to us is that On the SDF form, or on the sales disclosure form, it is very important that question number 11, that is under the assessors section of the SDF, it asks, is the form complete? We really need for that to be checked yes. If not, if it's no, then we can't use this as part of our sales data compliance review process. We have to have that box checked in order to move forward with things. So again, if that's something you can take care of ahead of time before that gets submitted to us. Also, when we talk about the fee revenue reconciliation from the sales disclosure fees, this is a joint process, or where the auditor or the county auditor and the county assessor really need to work together to kind of make sure that this is done correctly. We're talking about question number 12 under the assessor section of the SDF, where it says, is state sales disclosure fee required? If that is checked yes, then the county auditor's office will need to verify that the fee has indeed been collected and then passed on to the state for that particular sales transaction. These discrepancies between number 12 and then number 7 under the auditor section, where is the state sales disclosure fee collected? If there are discrepancies there, that can result in the county falling outside the tolerance of the department's revenue compliance check. So again, we're just trying to give you as much information here ahead of time so that we don't have the non-compliancy issue that we have to then circle back and get corrected. Okay, so talking about the state sales disclosure fee revenue reconciliation and some steps we can take there to help speed up the process. There are certain sales disclosure transactions which are eligible to be assessed the state sales disclosure fee. Right now, I'm pretty sure that is sitting at $20 is what that fee is. Half of that money gets retained by the county to be used for your own purposes, and then the other half gets remitted to the state as part of the settlement process. So for county auditors, this is an important step. You need to verify that you've completed the fall 2022 settlement process with the AOS, the Auditor of State's office, and have remitted to the state any additional state sales or disclosure fee revenue that was collected since the spring settlement in 2022. Again, that all gets handled. The DLGF doesn't have a hands-on process for that. That's done with the Auditor of State's office. It needs to go through that. Okay. I believe that I just completed that first section that I was talking about, the kind of the steps that you could take or that the county can take before actually submitting anything. Now I'm going to get into the different steps for actually submitting what is needed here by the department. So one of the things that we're going to be asking for, or that we need as soon as possible, is the sales disclosure fee fund report. So in order to help us with our review of the county's submitted sales, we ask that be sent to us via email at the department's data inbox, data@dlgf.in.gov. I was told by James, or I have it here in my notes from something that I saw from him, that we like to try and get that report in early to mid-January. It really helps to have that ahead of time as we are beginning our compliance review process, so that we can check against any discrepancies that we are seeing. If we have that available to us, we're not waiting on anyone else in order to do that checking that we need to. The fund report should provide a transaction log of the state sales disclosure fees collected during the previous calendar year, including the amounts remitted to the state during the spring 2022 and fall 2022 settlement periods. So let me back up a little bit here. So I mentioned that we want to try and get this as soon as we can, kind of towards the beginning to middle of January. we cannot receive it before December 31st, 2022. We need to make sure that all of the sales data or sales have been completed before we receive that report. So please do not send it to us before December 31st of this year. We need to wait for calendar year 2022 to expire. But as soon as that is the case and everything has been taken care of on your end, that is something that can be sent in to us as soon as possible. Okay, once the county assessor's office has completed its review of the sales disclosure records and has completed the reconciliation process of the sales disclosure fee revenue with the county auditor's office, the county assessor's office can then actually submit its sales data to the state. Again, what we're looking for there, I mentioned this deadline earlier, but we really need to have that before February 1st because we're trying to get things ready for those ratio studies, and that's the timeline that we need it by. So all counties now use the Gateway Sales Application site, which I'm going to show here in a few minutes, to upload their sales data to the department. I think that in years past, excuse me, in years past, there were some different ways or some different methods that different counties used for submitting their sales data. Starting last year in 2021, it was imperative or it was required that everyone submit through the Gateway Sales Application site, which we spent a lot of time on and put a lot of work into getting it ready for all the different counties to do that. So this is now a requirement. It started last year that all sales data is transmitted to us through this particular website. Again, it's extremely important that all your sales data includes records for the complete calendar year. So from January 1st of 2022 all the way through December 31st. We need everything that you have in there. If you have already been doing kind of what you're supposed to with the incremental uploads, either monthly or quarterly, as much as you're able to, of your sales data throughout the year, we don't necessarily need you to do another upload of all of it, of all your 2022 sales by the February 1st deadline. If you've already got it in there, that's fine. However, you can certainly do so in the event that you need to update some information from those past sales for any sales that have been edited or updated since they were last uploaded. So that is definitely something we want you to try to do to make sure that we're as accurate as possible. But we don't need you to just repeat the same thing if you've already got the data uploaded. Something that has changed here recently, and I don't know if this was last year or if it's new this year, but you do not need to submit or email the sales data separately to the Legislative Services Agency. They are going to use the data that we get from everybody. So it comes to us first. We will load it into the database, and then LSA will use it as appropriate. Okay. So here is a sneak peek, or hopefully it's not new to folks if you've been transmitting some of your sales data already throughout the year and on a monthly basis. But this is a visual for what the sales application looks like. And I apologize, this is a screenshot. I stole it from something that James had earlier. So you're going to see some information maybe from last year, like this says 1/1/2021. It has James's login and stuff there. So I apologize for that, but I'll be sure to point it out to you. This is what you should see though when you go to that site. So I'm going to skip to the next slide, my notes slide on this, to give you a visual of this particular, or the URL address for the site itself. So that's listed right here under this first bullet point, this thing that's in blue here, this link that's listed in blue. That's the Gateway Sales Application site where all of these uploads are going to occur. It has the same URL that was used previously prior to our big enhancement of this new site back in 2021. The username and password that you put in to log into Gateway, just to submit your PTBOA, it should be the exact same. it's the one-stop shop is what we were trying to get here with the gateway application. So you shouldn't need a different username or different password for it. However, I think that when we first set this up for folks, the default was to make the county assessor be the one who has access to it. You can have additional people request access to that or be given access. We can set that up for you through the IS department. We will just need you to email us a request for that to support@dlgf.in.gov. Sometimes there's like a deputy assessor or even the software vendor. That's something that we can get set up if we need to, but as of right now, the default is the county assessor. Okay, so once you get logged in, this will be the next thing that you see. It has the homepage on the sales site. It's something that, like I mentioned, this came out last year, but we streamlined it a lot from what the previous process was. You're going to select the applicable sales year for which you need to upload your data file. So again, this is what I was mentioning about my screenshots being a little old. It is no longer 2021 that we're needing data on upcoming. So when we get this submitted, you should be the 2022 should be the year that's selected here. Once you have done that, you will click on the county name down here. So I just have Adams showing, obviously, but you'll see your county name pop up based on your login, and you will click on that, and it will then take you to the next screen that you need, which will look like this. So this is where you're actually going to upload your files into our sales site so that we can go through them and start looking at the different files that you've sent to us. It is important to note here, and it's not super big, but sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Apologies. If you, right here, we can only accept zipped files. So we need you to zip those files together. There are 5 of them that need the 5 sales disclosure data files need to be zipped together and then selected through here. You select the choose file, and then once that you've got that selected, the zipped files, you hit the upload button, and it should get uploaded to the system. Hopefully, if everything goes as smoothly as we're wanting it to. It's a much easier process than it has been in years past. Sorry, I got mixed up here. So once that happens, once we get the files uploaded, hopefully what you will see down here is that the upload status was valid. It went through. So if you see this green box, that means that everything went through just fine. The DLGF now has the data. You can actually then look at it by clicking down here on this download. So if you wanted to see the data that you uploaded to the site, you're welcome to do that. That will be available here. And then also the details under this action section, you're welcome to click on that. I don't know if it's really going to say a whole lot. This is really more for when the it is the valid or it's invalid. It was not accepted. Your upload was not accepted. This is where we'll be able to look to get additional details on what was causing that to not be a valid upload. So again, this is the screen that you hopefully should see. If everything works the way that it should, you should see that green button down there at the bottom after you've uploaded your file. This is what you would see if it did not work out the way that we wanted to. You'd see a red invalid under the upload status. You will notice here that you then can't download the data because it was never uploaded correctly into our system, so we don't have it. It didn't come through the way that we needed it to. And you can get more details on that here under that details section under the action items. So we were gonna, if you see this, if you see that it's invalid, it didn't work, go all the way over here to the right, get these details. You'll click on that details link, and that will take us to our next screen that we're looking at. Yep. Okay, so right here, it's going to give you a more detailed look at each of the different files that failed. As I mentioned, we need a zipped file submitted to us that has all 5 of the different sales data files. So these are the 5 possible files that could come up. And each file that generated errors upon processing will be listed with a red failed status under the status column. So right here is where that indicator will be. Please note that in order for the entire data set to process, in order for the whole thing to go green, we need all 5 files to have a valid status. So this right here is a situation that's not good. We've got 5 of them that have failed. We need for all of them, all 5 of them to be green for it to pass and get a valid status so that we've uploaded the data that we need. Even if only one of these contain errors, that'll prevent the entire set from being processed. You can get even more detail, which I'm going to have us do here on the next screenshot, by going over here under this action column and clicking on this link for view error. So that will bring up a page that looks like this. So when you click on one of the view errors, it now has the errors listed line by line here under the error description. Each SDF record that generated an error is going to be listed on the view error screen along with the description right here. It's possible that certain SDF IDs may be listed more than once. I don't think that happens here on this example. We have some different IDs all the way down across the bottom, but it might be possible that they will be listed more than once, excuse me, if there are multiple errors for that particular SDF ID. So that's something to take note of as well. Please note that you may need to click also at the bottom here. This particular one that we generated did not have another page to it, but there can be. So you may need to click over to the next button or then go back to the previous button to fully capture all of the errors that are listed out here. What I would highly recommend doing is, after you've gotten to this point, if you've tried to upload things, it's invalid, it's not working, I would take a screenshot of this right here and then send this to your software vendor. That is something that's going to be valuable to them to try and get this corrected for you so that you can then upload the data to us. Okay. Yeah. Here we go. So upon completion of your review and the validation process, so that once everything has successfully been uploaded, we're not quite done yet. Okay, you need to upload all of your sales data for a particular month. And then once you've done that, you're going to want to affirm that you have uploaded the complete, reviewed, and validated data set for that month. In years past, I think there was a way that we could, or a way that we required it. We needed you to email us separately after this has been uploaded. That is no longer the case, okay? This is just a really quick and simple, and I'm going to show you in screenshots here in a minute, quick, simple 3-step process. This new affirmation feature takes the place of having to email us, email the department's data inbox. We no longer need to do that to verify that you've submitted your sales. This will all be done on the website. It's quick and easy for us to see that, yes, you indeed have verified and affirmed that your sales data has been uploaded. So it's just a much easier and smooth process. I tried to make this bold here at the bottom, but it's super important that before we can do anything, before we can start our review process on the DLGF side of things, we have to have everything. We have to have all 12 months sales must be in there, and it must be affirmed before the data analysis division will conduct its compliance review process. Okay, so please make sure that, and I'll again point it out to you here on the next visual that we have, you have everything not only submitted, but you've affirmed those submissions for all 12 months. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is the visual for how you know that something has been affirmed. The first thing that you do is you will click on that edit button for the applicable month. So obviously, if we're doing January, as in this example, you'd click on that edit button under the January row. Once you've done that, a box will appear here under the affirmation column. you're going to want to make sure you check that box under the affirmation column. And then once you've done that, you just click on save. And it's that simple. It's done at that point. You've affirmed it. And what will show up is a date and time stamp. And this is what we will see, saying that you have uploaded your data, you've affirmed it for the month of January. We're good to go. Great. We've got 1 out of the 12. So we will look down this and make sure that all 12 months have been uploaded and that have been affirmed by the county. Okay. So again, that takes us to the end of that second section. Excuse me. We're now going to begin looking at the third part of the process, which is where now the ball is in DLGF's court, and we are going to begin our compliance review process after everything has been submitted to us. So again, we ask you to, like I explained in the first part of this presentation, to review the data as much as possible on your own end. Make sure everything passes the eye test and before it gets submitted to us. And then step 2 is actually submit that data to us and make sure that it goes into the right way or goes in through our website. And now step 3 is on our end. We're going to start looking at that data and making sure it passes our different compliance reviews that we conduct. So there are two main things two main questions that we ask ourselves or that we're wanting to make sure of in these compliance reviews that we do. Number 1, have all the sales been submitted for the specified conveyance period? We're looking at the entirety of 2022. If that's not the case, then we have a problem. It's not going to be a compliant set of data. We need it for all 12 months, and we need for it to be complete. And also then, does the SDF data submitted, the data that we actually got, appear to be complete and accurate? As I mentioned before, and some of the things you can do ahead of time to make sure that's the case, or that you're not going to be non-compliant in our review process. Are there buyers and sellers listed for each ID? Is the sales price listed? Are the taxing district and parcel number included? Those are things that we're going to be checking here in our own processes. So it's very helpful, as I've mentioned before, it's very helpful to consider that the data analysis division's review of the sale data, what we're actually doing here is helping set up the ratio study approval process, which is extremely important. Our review helps to ensure that the underlying foundation of the sales data that is used in the ratio study is clean and accurate for the ratio study to be used. So the data analysis division's review it sets the table, right? So it's not going to get into the weeds on some of these specifics. If you have these questions about your data, should a certain sale be marked valid for trending? That's not us. That's not the data team and what we're going to be looking for. Or should a certain sale be included in a ratio study? I would highly encourage you to reach out to your assessment field rep to get a better understanding of that if you have those types of questions. Okay, so after we complete our review, after we have gone through everything and completed our review process, we are going to be deemed either non-compliant or compliant at this point. We will make sure to email you back what we've found here when we've done our review process. This email that we send back to you, we're going to take some time to explain that and explain the process and see where you're at in it. But we're also going to make sure that we include 2 different documents or attach 2 different documents in that email. The first one, the sales issues workbook, will be an Excel file, and it provides an itemized breakdown of the records that contain probable or possible errors based on our compliance check. So this is going to be a much more detailed look at everything. Like, we'll take you line by line and why, okay, this one is out of compliance, it doesn't work. so on and so forth. If you really want to get into the weeds, that sales issue workbook is going to be where you do that in terms of looking at our review process. The sales disclosure compliance report is much more of a higher level. It provides a summary analysis of the various checks that we performed on the submitted data. So it's basically going to be a summary of that Excel file, that sales issue workbook will be the sales disclosure compliance report. The PDF version will have like a summary of all those different things that we found in the Excel file, along with your official compliancy status. So that will be something you'll want to make sure you check out for sure, because that will clearly indicate whether you are compliant or not. All right, so I'm going to go into a little bit more detail with the sales issue workbook. That is again, the Excel file, and it can contain up to 6 different tabs or 6 separate tabs, which provides a list of all the different sales records that generated errors, either certain or possible, when the data was run through the various compliance checks. So that's where we will list off all of the different things that could have happened that seem off to us, that didn't check through our compliance process. So on this file, when you get it back from us, you're going to be looking for 6 different tabs. There are up to 6 different tabs. It is certainly possible that you may have less than that, because we're only pointing out the errors here. So like if you completely passed one of these sections, it's completely clean and we didn't see any problems with it or catch anything, then you could only have 5 tabs or 4 tabs or 3 tabs. I think it's extremely, extremely rare for this just to not be needed and something to be completely clean. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing when you have less than 6 tabs. But you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing if there's some data here that doesn't check out. I think the vast majority of these you do usually have something there that we catch in some of these different sections, these different tabs. By far, the most important one is that first one that I've listed there, the missing critical data. That's going to be the one that really has an impact on whether or not you are listed as non-compliant or compliant. So we'll go into some more detail there, but that one's going to be that's the big one. There's also a tab that will be for single parcel sale duplicates, multi-parcel sale duplicates, valuable consideration, something that we call Part 2, the county assessor checks, and then finally Part 3, the county auditor checks. All right, as I mentioned before, the missing critical data tab contains data that may be missing or mismatched between the sales file and the parcel file. So these checks are performed on both, all the different sales that took place, both single and multi-parcel sales, but we separate those 2 sections out on the spreadsheet. So when you get this spreadsheet back, if you have missing critical data, there will be a section at the top that goes over the single parcel sales, and then a section down at the bottom that goes over the multi-parcel sales. But again, that is the one that's going to be the most important. It basically is the main determiner in your compliancy status. We also have a tab that will go over any duplicates at the single parcel level. This can be a situation where, you know, generally these sales will contain different SDF ID numbers, but they look exactly the same. Like they'll have the same parcel number, conveyance date, sales price, you know, everything just looks the same to it, but it just has a different ID number. That's something that we will check on and make sure we point out to you as something that could potentially be an error and could be corrected. Exact same thing here with the multi-parcel sale duplicates. This just refers to when there's a multi-parcel sale. But again, same thing. We're looking for those duplicate records, and we're going to want to make sure we point those out to you. The valuable consideration tab consists of, or contains rather, a list of parcels or sales that have a sales price greater than 0. but are marked as no for valuable consideration. So obviously that doesn't match up, and we're going to try and point that out to you as well on that tab. Finally, the last two, part 2 is really more for the county assessor. It's the county assessor checks tab. It contains records where there are possible discrepancies between items marked in part 1 of the SDF compared to the information listed in part 2 of the SDF. Now, part 1 I think is usually completed by the preparer, and then 2 is completed by the county assessor. So if there's some discrepancies there, like for instance, an example, an individual SDF that contains multiple parcels located in different taxing units, or excuse me, different taxing districts, that's something that we're going to try and flag, and that will be there in part 2. Finally, in part 3, this is for mostly the county auditor checks tab, contains records where there are possible discrepancies between those records, marked as requiring a state sales disclosure fee, and then the amount of fee that was collected. That's something that we're going to be checking on. We need to make sure that that matches up. Okay, so here is what I was talking about previously was all of the different sections in the Excel file that you're going to be sent. That Excel file, again, goes line by line and lists any kind of errors that we saw in our compliance review process. This right here is a screenshot of the PDF that you will receive that is more of a summary level data of the Excel file. It will have all of your information listed, so kind of a one-stop shop that will give you an idea of how everything is looking for your county submission. So again, it's usually about 2 pages here is what you are seeing. I'm going to take in these next slides here, I will zoom in on each one of these different sections and talk about them and how they kind of relate back to the Excel file and all of your different errors that could be listed there. So the top part of it, rather, this doesn't refer exactly to anything in the Excel file, but just lists kind of, you know, your header file, your information on your county, the county name and number, the date of the report, the date the sales files are received, and then probably what's going to be most important to you folks is this section 3. It states your status, whether you are compliant or non-compliant. It will say right there in big bold letters very clearly what your status currently is. And then sections 4 and 5 just allow us to provide some additional commentary and different things that we can probably point out to you in our review from our review process. So I don't have all of it captured here, most of it, lines 6 through 21, which obviously we don't have all the way down to 21 here, but lines 6 through 21 are going to be, again, kind of a summary level analysis of the Excel file, specifically the missing critical data tab. So there's a lot of information that's keyed up here, but it is summarized at this level. The one that's most important there is that green box that's been checked, or that number 11. We are wanting to see a number in there, a percentage number that is in between 90% and 105%. That tolerance level, that if we don't see that, there's probably going to be a problem with your compliancy status. We understand that it's not necessarily going to be 100% due to the settlement process. You know, sometimes there's a timing issue there. It doesn't always line up for when the data has been submitted to us. So we give a little bit of leeway. That's what we're talking about with the 90% to the 105%. But if it is outside of that range, that's going to be an issue for the compliancy part of it. And again, the other sections here is a summary of all of the different things with the missing critical data tab in the Excel file. This is also, so again, up through 21 here, so 18 through 21 still refers to the missing critical data tab in the Excel file. And the biggest thing that we're looking at, what I would say is probably the most important line of the entire document, is line 21 there, the percentage of the overall total number of records that are missing critical data. So in this particular circumstance that we have it as an example here, there were 59 single parcel sales that were missing critical data. 2 multi-parcel sales, you add those up, you get 61. That 61 divided by the overall total number of sales gives us this percentage. If this percentage is higher than 2%, that's an automatic non-compliancy issue that we have. So that's definitely something that we will be watching closely, and that's something that hopefully won't be an issue for your county. But we need that to stay under 2%. Otherwise, it's an automatic non-compliance. Section 22 through 24 gets into the single parcel duplicates section of the Excel file. So that particular tab, rows 25 through 27 talks about the multi-parcel duplicates section of the Excel file. 28 and 29, lines 28 and 29 deal with the valuable consideration section that is listed on the Excel file, the issues workbook that is sent your way. The part 2 for the county assessor is lines 30 through 36. So there again is some summary information available. And the last part of it, part 3 rather, from the Excel file, the issues workbook, matches up to lines 37 through 40 in the compliance report. So that's where this will be found. I believe that was the auditor, the section for the auditor. We also provide a analysis of how well the data that we've received matches the parcel file that we received during this fall. So the fall real property compliance reviews, we take that parcel file and compare it to some of the different data that we've received for these sales. So you'll have information here posted for this particular section that deals with our comparison process of the sales data versus the parcel file match. Lastly, we also can include a section that's valid for trending. This is really just informational only, and it's something that we try to highlight for the county assessors. Particularly these 2 sections here that I've got in green are things that we want to try and, again, highlight for you. We look for this percentage, this first percentage here that we've listed on the example, 75.8. The valid for trending as a percent of total SDF records reported. If it is under 35%, that is going to probably be an issue for you later on. It's not something that's going to cause your data to be non-compliant, but it's something that we're trying to point out to you because you're probably going to get some follow-up questions from your assessment field rep when they start looking at the sales data and going through the ratio study process. So again, over 35% is what we're needing to have here in this first one that I've highlighted in green. The second section, valid for trending as a percentage of total SDF records marked for valuable consideration, and require a state sales disclosure fee. In this section here, we're looking at least a 55% rate. Again, it's not necessarily going to affect your compliance status with us, with the data team, but it could spell issues for you later on. So we're wanting to make sure that we point that out to you. Okay, so in summary here, if your county sales data is deemed non-compliant, we need to get that fixed. If it's deemed non-compliant by the data analysis division, the county is going to have to review the possible errors, make any necessary corrections, and resubmit its sales data for another round of reviews. We want to try and get through that process as quickly as we can because this is holding up the ratio studies. So the longer this takes, the longer it takes for the ratio studies process to get started. We want to try and get these, if there are any issues here where something is identified as being non-compliant, we want to try and work on that and get that resubmitted to us as soon as possible. Once you've given that compliant status, so when a county's sales data is deemed compliant, we're good to go. This essentially signals the go-ahead for the assessment division to start with what they do, proceed with its review, and ultimate approval of the county submitted ratio study. So for them to work their magic and make sure that the ratio study's looking like it should. Okay. One last thing that I wanted to at least mention here, the SDF online search database is available to the general public, so you don't need a gateway login and password or anything like that to be able to view past sales records data that we have. Anything that's been uploaded to the Gateway Sales Application site, again, which was launched last year, so it's been since 2021 and 2022, any past data that we have from there will be on that first link that you see. You can just go to the Gateway SDF IFI online and search for that data through that link. Prior to that, so prior to our big upgrade that we did last year, if you're looking for sales records data that goes from 2008 to 2020 timeframe, you're going to need to look or go to the second link that I've provided here. You can still access that data. It's just that we don't have it in the same place as our new data that we have from 2021 and 2022. And unfortunately, if you need data that goes back even farther than that, prior to 2008, we need you to seek that out with the applicable county to inquire if they still have access to that information. Okay, I think that about wraps up things on my end. Jenny, I haven't really been paying attention to the questions that have popped up in the chat. Would you mind highlighting those for us?
Sure, happy to do that. Okay, so we had a few come in. One is if a county plans to use October 21 to October 22 sales for the ratio study, can they notify the data division and ask that their October to October sales be reviewed for compliance prior to January 1, or as soon as the county has affirmed they are ready?
That's a good question. I'm not sure about that. Let me check into that for you, and then I can be sure to email you back. I see that it's I'm seeing it now. It's listed as anonymous.
Yes. So if it came up as anonymous and you're seeing your question, if you can reply back to that and let us know who submitted that question, or if you want a copy of the answer to a particular question, that way we can get that response back to you after we check with the other staff members here on the response for you. Okay, the next question is, it would be helpful if we were able to download or print a list of the errors rather than taking a screenshot, because we frequently have multiple pages of errors.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that our IS team would have to work on. I don't know if that is available right now. Again, that is something that I can check into and get back with you on. I don't see it happening. Just to be honest with you, and Frank, I don't see that happening before the current kind of round that we have to do coming up here in January and February. But that is certainly something I can mark down and list as something that we can get hopefully in place in the future. But that's good feedback. Thank you.
Okay, and then our final question is, since you compare the parcel to the previous year parcel file, it does not account for new parcels in a county that has a lot of new plats and construction. This has been a problem in the past. They have entered new plat in part 2, number 15. Can that be included on the spreadsheet so they do not have to research all of this again? They have an example was in Boone County. They have over 1,000 new parcels that have been built and sold in 2022.
Okay, that's another really good question. I'm sorry I'm not as prepared as I need to be to answer that right at this moment, but that is something that I can definitely research and get back to you. If you can leave your contact information, I will be sure to do that.
All right, well, I think that wraps up the questions that have been entered. We'll leave the chat open for a few minutes so that we can respond back to any other questions. Just as a follow-up, you will receive an email tomorrow with the survey, the presentation, the video, and the CE form. I have already posted the survey and the CE form on the DLGF website under the webinars page. So if you do want to go ahead and get those completed, you can do that and then submit that to Donna Bratcher here or your governing body, whoever collects that information. So you can go ahead and do that, but it is a self-reporting CE credit. So you do need to fill that out and submit that to get the credit for it. And then we'll have that on the website and the email will be sent tomorrow. So we'll leave this open for a few minutes for questions. And if you submitted any of those 3 questions that we read off, please include your name and email so that we can get a response back to you. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you in December.